message in the comment box and say if the sound's working. We good?
Well, Brian, I don't know at what point you cut out, but let's just do a brief overview of that timeline because I think it's so important. So in January, you got the call that Kroger was closing. In February, you held a public meeting. Of course, March is when COVID really hit hard, but we still continue to press through on this redevelopment project. In July, you held 7 public meetings, one of which had over 50 attendees via Zoom. And here we are in September, continuing to work with the developer and really starting to gain momentum and continue to move forward together with this project. Did I cover it all?
Yeah, that really does. And right now, so what we're at is that business plan development phase. And so some of you have seen, and Larry's team has worked on what's called the Four Corners development. Okay. And again, what I think is important about the expertise that Larry brings in is he's looking at this more holistically. Okay. It's easy to just look at that location, but there's a reason why Kroger left that store. That store was not profitable for them. They were losing money. A lot of it was around product that has a timeline, a shelf life. And so unfortunately they were losing a lot of product because it wasn't getting turned over quick enough. And so they were losing product that eventually just has to either
be tossed,
or if there's a possibility of being donated before the end of its shelf life, they do that. But Kroger left that location for a reason. They're a private business, they're a private company, and in our capitalistic society, they're about making money. And so Larry's team is looking at this more holistically because we have to be able to have a much larger impact in that location. We have to be able to draw traffic off of the interstate with 65,000 cars a day. We have to be able to generate an experience around that location that will allow for a grocer or any retail establishment to thrive. And so Larry's looking at it beyond just that Kroger property, just that Kroger building. And that's why the city went with him, is because he was looking at it more holistically. Sure. We have to improve more than just that individual property. We have to look at improvement to the corridor as a whole.
Okay, Brian, let me ask you one question before we jump to some of the questions that were already pre-submitted.
Yeah.
So I know you hear this question a lot. Why doesn't the city simply put another grocer back into that building? So you got the call in January, come February, why didn't the city just put another grocery store in there?
Well, again, as I talked about, Kroger left that location for a reason. So We've had conversations with other grocers. Larry Dillon and his team, again, with the relationships that he's had, has had conversations with other grocers. And right now, the market, especially with COVID, unfortunately, retailers are not looking at necessarily putting in new locations, new spaces. And that's a challenge. The retail industry, the grocery industry specifically, was in a downturn. They saw a spike during COVID because of a lot of the people were building up their supplies and so forth. And hoarding. Hoarding supplies. I know there was the great toilet paper rush of 2020, but a lot of grocers are very they're very cautious about entering into a new space, entering into a new market. And especially, again, Kroger has numbers that shows they were not making money. Other grocers take that into account. And so, again, it's not as easy as saying, okay, Kroger left, let's just put Aldi in there.
Right.
Aldi makes corporate decisions. Again, in a capitalistic society, those businesses are making business decisions. And so it's not, unfortunately, as easy as just going out to another grocer and saying, hey, here's this space. Okay. We're certainly having those conversations. We're showing them the grand vision, the grand plan beyond just their space that they could be in at that location, the former Kroger location, but we're showing them the enhancements, the beautification, the increased investment that is going on in the South Limestone corridor.
That's awesome. I think that was an important point to make, that it's the actual companies that are making those decisions on where they would like to locate.
Yes, and that's a challenge. I mean, we would love to have every retail establishment known to man in our community as an offering for our community, but it's a unfortunate reality that they're going to make a business decision that is best for them, and we really don't have a lot of opportunity to sway that, other than showing them the investment that we're willing to make in a corridor, the investment that we're willing to put in to attract and entice new retail establishments into our community, and that includes grocers.
This kind of ties into Bart's question. I know you've answered this for the most part. When will we get another grocery store on the south side? So you talked a lot about the efforts that the city's making, the partnership that we have with Dillon. Do we have any sort of timeline for Bart?
There's no real immediate timeline.
Okay.
Again, COVID's kind of changed. It put another dampening on the retail industry, which is unfortunate. But again, working with Larry and his team, he is putting the business plan together to make that space an attractive location for a grocer to go into. And that opportunity may be a co-op opportunity like we see down in Dayton, which is the Gym City Market, or it may be a private grocer. And that's what I think the city's first intent or interest is, to go after and attract a private grocer into this space.
Absolutely.
Now, you're seeing a change in the grocery industry, again, all during this time. So COVID aside, the grocery industry was starting to shift anyway. I mean, how many, I can tell you, we use the click list feature that Kroger has. I know Meijer has pickup and delivery. Kroger has delivery as well as the click list pickup. Walmart, they're all shifting their model, and so they don't need as much space as they once needed. And so this facility is about 29,000 square feet. And in those conversations with the grocers, they've indicated that they probably would be around a 12 to 15,000 square foot footprint, so about half the building.
Okay,
maybe a little bit more than half. And so we want to be able to program the rest of the space. So on the screen, or if people are able to see right now, this is the Four Corners plan that Larry Dillon and his team, through the input of the community, has come up with. And so it would be the north side of the building. Again, about 15,000 square feet would be programmed into a marketplace location for another grocer to come in, and it would have your fresh produce, it'd have your fresh meats, it would have your box staple items, your canned goods, and so that would take up about 15,000 square feet of the building. And then looking at reprogramming the rest of the space, Larry Dillon and his team is looking at some type of food hall concept, which again would provide opportunity to access the food, but it would be more in a vendor type format. So if you've been to the Cohatch in downtown, there's 5 different little spaces within one location, one space. They're all operated independently, because one of the biggest challenges for a new restaurant or a new eatery to go in is that expense of a commercial kitchen. And so what this allows is they can share the resources, the investment, and spread it out among multiple vendors, as opposed to that all falling on one. And so there's a concept, you can see the green space there, so there could be some indoor outdoor interaction. The city actually purchased this summer the auction house, the former auction house that just sits along John Street south of the Kroger building itself. That's going to be demolished here probably in the next month or so. That building will be gone.
That's the white building that sits behind, right?
Yes, that is the small white building that sits behind the property. It kind of blighted, rundown structure. We want to clear that out and open up the opportunity for some green space. One of Larry Dillon's secret sauces, I think is what he calls it, is about bringing events, making it a destination. And so driving traffic will help entice and encourage someone to invest in a grocery store or any type of retail establishment. You want to create and generate traffic. And so this green space is seen as a public space where there can be events and performances. You see in the front, there's a space for food trucks. Food trucks are obviously very popular right now.
Sure.
And so this just makes it more than just a grocery store. And that is how Larry and his team and the community believe that we can see the investment that's necessary to get the access to food in this location and to make it sustainable, because that's what's key. You can throw another grocer in there and make no other changes or no investment into the area, and they probably will encounter the same fate Kroger did, and we'll be right back in the same position that we are now. And we don't want that. We want to create a sustainable opportunity for food access along this corridor.
Absolutely. I know you spoke briefly about that Austin Landing redevelopment, but I know that events planning piece was key and just one of the many facets that's made that so successful. So that would be awesome to see that in this area or in this space.
Yes, definitely. And you see there's opportunity for residential
to the rear.
To the rear of the property, kind of along Clifton and John. And that, again, it just creates activity. It makes it an activity center and hub that drives traffic, which is ultimately what leads to the success of a retailer.
Wonderful. So, Brian, Michael asks, has the city given any thought to pedestrian walkways for Limestone Street? So maybe you could talk a little bit about the plans that we just submitted to ODOT.
Yeah, so this is a great segue into what is really exciting for this corridor. And I talk about retailers want to see the vision. They want to see that there's a plan to move ahead into the future. And so one of the projects that started really back in 2017 was a planning study that looked at the entire corridor, the transportation network from Leffel Lane all the way up to Selma along State Route 72 or South Limestone Street. That plan received a bunch of community input. I would say in my career, that project probably received the most public input that I've seen. And that, again, speaks to the passion the community has for what is the primary gateway, the primary entrance into our community. And so from that, we were able to leverage a $500,000 grant from the Ohio Department of Transportation. So leverage state dollars, our tax dollars, back into our community.
Awesome.
And that study did the preliminary engineering, again, from Leffel Lane up to Singer Street, which is just north of this Kroger location, and start to put the plans in place to start the enhancements to the corridor. I am proud to say that the state of Ohio has now funded the first phase of that project. That's a $2.4 million project from Leffel Lane to Lansdowne. So a very small piece to start, but that's phase one. And then we have applied and actually present to the Ohio Department of Transportation for the phase two portion, which is Lansdowne to Singer Street, early next month in October. And we're hopeful that we are awarded those funds. And then we will have $7.5 million of state investment from Leffel Lane to Singer Street put into that corridor. And what's great about that is it looks at more than just the vehicular traffic. It's looking at the pedestrian traffic. This is a safety corridor grant that we've received from the state of Ohio. So it's looking at the safety of the vehicles. It's looking at the safety of cyclists. It's looking at the safety of pedestrians. And so, yes, part of the project is looking at pedestrian access, looking at those nodes. Where does it make sense for pedestrian crossings and so forth? The other big piece that I'm very happy is moving forward as a part of this project is right now when you walk on Limestone, which we have a lot of pedestrian traffic on Limestone, you feel like you're walking in the travel lane. You feel like you're walking with the vehicles. And it doesn't feel very safe. And so one of the things that this project will do is actually move that back. It'll separate. It'll create a buffer space between that lane of traffic and the pedestrian sidewalk. And what that does is it allows for opportunity for enhancement. So you can see in the design here, and this is John Street, but it allows for trees it allows for enhanced lighting to be added into the corridor, which creates that safer environment for vehicles and pedestrians and cyclists alike. So I'm excited for this project. Again, we've received the $2.4 million from the state of Ohio for the first phase. We're presenting to ODOT and making the case to ODOT to invest in the rest of the corridor up to Singer Street. And that would make it a total of $7.5 million that we're able to leverage back into our community to make this happen. And again, enhance a corridor that serves as the primary entrance and primary gateway into Springfield.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. So just to clarify, we have been approved for funding for that first round of the project, which is Leffel to Lansdowne, excuse me. And phase 2, which we're still applying for, would be Lansdowne to Singer.
Yes.
So when can the community expect to see some movement from Leffel to Lansdowne?
Yeah, so we just worked with our consultant, LJB. They're the design engineer firm. So we just got the agreement in place for them to begin the detailed design work. Going through the ODOT process, we would hope that we would bid that project in state fiscal year 2023, which is actually at the end of 2022. So the state fiscal year starts in July 1 of every year, and it's usually a year ahead. So July 1 of 2022 will be the start of state fiscal year 2023, and that's when we hope that project would begin.
That's confusing.
Yes, it is.
Well, Michael, that was a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. Brian, if you don't mind switching gears just a bit, we have some additional questions. Jeremy asks, what are your plans to drive more business to downtown? Would the city consider at least discounted or free parking at the parking garage for Springfield residents?
Yes. So, Jeremy, thank you for submitting your question and tuning in. We've seen a great revitalization of our downtown. I'm a true believer that we need to focus on our core and build out. Just like in exercising, if you don't have a strong core, it really doesn't make sense to work on the rest.
That's a good analogy.
Logan, she's the one that goes to the gym, so she knows all about that. And, but you need to have a strong core. And so we've really focused on the last 10 years on investing in our downtown area. And we've seen the fruits of that investment come to fruition with parking garage, the downtown townhomes. Obviously, we have Ohio Valley Surgical Hospital, Springfield Regional Medical Center, Code Blue, Clark Schaefer Hackett, all the restaurants and retail shops on Fountain Avenue. We hope to add 3 additional ones in the parking garage spaces
Awesome.
to really make the Fountain Avenue corridor, that spine of our downtown, just a great spot for activity. And so it's really a focus on enhancing and revitalizing our existing infrastructure. And when I'm talking about the infrastructure, I'm talking about the built environment that stands today. So we have some beautiful buildings. I know the Turner Foundation owns several of them. Jim Logos owns several properties. He's put a lot of private investment into his buildings, but it's making those spaces, those buildings attractive for new users, both from a retail standpoint, but also from an office user standpoint and other business aspects. And so it's really about working with our private property owners and putting the investments in place that allows them to be successful in renovating those spaces. To the parking garage, so that's something that we have been constantly analyzing. So obviously the garage opened, the timing was probably some of the most unfortunate timing with COVID hitting, as Logan said, really hard in March, and the parking garage opened up at the end of March, first part of April. And so the timing was unfortunate, but the parking garage is a great asset. And the reason why it's a great asset is when we work with office users, businesses that are looking to locate downtown, one of the first questions they ask us is, where is everybody going to park? And we do have a lot of surface lots in downtown. I hope that we can increase our density and remove some of those surface lots, not all of them, but some of them, and have built structures, other opportunities for more business to come downtown. But they want one concentrated location for their employees and their customers and clients to park. They don't want to say, you two go park down there. Well, there's 20 spaces over here and so forth. So having that parking garage is critical to attracting more business into our downtown. Clark Schaefer Hackett and Code Blue, there are two companies that continue to expand in our downtown. And one of the things that they really wanted to see was an investment in that parking garage. As they look at their plans to continue to grow, that was a big piece to it. So that was a big piece of growing the opportunity for more businesses in our downtown, was adding that parking garage facility. As far as rates are concerned, we did work with Republic. Republic is a national company. Parking operation management is their focus. And so again, we wanted to bring an expert into our community that could help us with this parking garage project and make it a reality. And so they're constantly analyzing the rates to see what works, what doesn't. You saw September, we did a free promotion month of September.
Still going on.
So take advantage of it. Come down tonight, Friday night, have a nice dinner at Fratelli's or Stella and La Torte Dolce or the deli and park in that garage and see the ease of use, the how nice it is. A lot of people are weary about garages. They don't think lighting's good. They don't feel safe in them. I think you're going to see that this parking garage offers all of those things and meets all the needs for people to park there. But we're constantly analyzing our rates. As we come out of the free month September, we're looking at what those rates may be moving forward in the future. We're looking at potentially doing the first 30 minutes free for those people that are just walking across, grabbing a quick coffee or so forth. So we're constantly looking at the rate structure and the rate model and what works for our community, what works specifically for our residents. One of the big pieces I always hear about is, well, you know, our taxpayer dollars went towards building that garage. And that is correct. The city has committed a little over $3 million into the project. What we're trying to do is put that back on the user as opposed to the taxpayer. So the funding that went into it, we're hoping that would be covered by the users themselves of the garage versus everybody in the community and their tax dollars. So I know there's a lot of questions about why do our tax dollars go to this facility, yet then you're charging for it. What we're trying to do is that those tax dollars aren't being applied to the facility. The actual users of the facility itself are paying for the facility.
The month of September is free. Come downtown, like Brian said tonight, Friday night, and come discover the convenience of that parking garage. So let's hop up just a bit to Collier, Brian. So Richard asks, why can't city workers remove the vegetation from Collier parking lot and bill the owner for the work?
Yeah, so typically, private property owners that aren't maintaining their property typically would go through the code enforcement process. And Richard, I saw your question come in the other day, and so I will work directly with code enforcement and have orders put on that property. At a certain point in time, if the property owner doesn't address the violation that exists, then we would move forward with a contractor. So typically we would work with a private contractor that would go in and then we could bill the property owner. So Richard, I'll work with our code enforcement division and have them issue orders on any vegetation that needs to be removed and that doesn't meet code. And hopefully you'll see some progress here very shortly on that.
Awesome. Thank you for your question, Richard. And then our last pre-submitted question is from Linda, and she asks, please update everyone on the changes to the Dura Road project. So I know Chris was on last week with Live from Logan to talk about the Dura Road project, and he said that there would be some more development or some more updates to be had. Do you have anything to add?
No real new updates other than we are kind of having to reanalyze and look at the funding sources for that project. The state of Ohio did find that it did not apply to their safety fund program. And so we were not awarded safety funds from the state of Ohio. And so we're, as a staff, reanalyzing the funding sources that may be available. We know Dura Road has its challenges. It's failing. The base is failing specifically. So it's a reconstruction. It's not a simple shave and pave. We have to actually tear up the roadway and reconstruct it. And so we will hopefully have a plan in place here in the next couple weeks of how we're going to address and move forward with the Dura Road project.
Wonderful. Thank you for that update. So I do not see any more questions coming in. We were originally talking about the South Limestone redevelopment. So Brian, did we miss anything? Is there anything else to add?
Yeah, I want to thank again the community, because the community has really stood up and raised up around an issue in our community. And I mentioned Second Harvest Food Bank. There's many others that have stepped up in a big way to help address the food access issue that we're seeing in the south side of our community. That Kroger location serves several neighborhoods directly adjacent to it and beyond. And so we understand the issue. We understand the issue around food access, and we have partners that are addressing it from a short term, but we hope to obviously address it in long term and create a sustainable approach, a sustainable option to the food access issue that exists on the south end of our community.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for your time and your feedback, Brian. Thank you to the community for submitting questions and continuing to stay engaged here. So we're going to wrap up. We'll be back here in 2 weeks from now to talk about a different topic. So everyone enjoy the rest of their day. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.